topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Well, hello and welcome. I'm Bill Martinez. Good to have you with us, and we got a great show for you this afternoon. We're going to start off with the family first actress herself, the one and only Sam Sorbo will be here. Of course, Sam has been leading the charge for homeschooling and education. And of course, the question is, are we looking at the last days of the Department of Education? When you look at all the analytics of how much money the American taxpayer has been paying for our children for education and what we've been getting, the return on investment, absolutely lousy. As Donald Trump said, we pay the most of any country just about on the planet, and we're producing some of the worst results. Is that acceptable? I mean, I got to tell you, coming from a family of educators myself personally, I can tell you my relatives are rolling in their graves and thinking about how the education system has denigrated. Although even before they passed, we had talked because they were still active in education and saw what was going on in terms of the administrative state within the education itself. It was very administrative heavy. It's interesting how that pattern has duplicated itself, not only in our government, but in other parts of our civility and our organizations, and particularly in the Department of Education. So I'm looking forward to this conversation with Sam, also talking about the successes of homeschooling. Boy, by comparison, it stands out incredibly. There's no wonder that there's been this increasing movement of parents taking their kids and saying, "Hey, look, we're going to bring you out of the public education system. We're going to bring you home." And the results are, boy, wait till you see these results or hear about these results. It's incredible what has happened. And also, oh yeah, by the way, and you didn't even need Doge to check this out, but supposedly all the homeschooling effort that's taken place has served the taxpayer billions of dollars, because it's not going, to the public schools, and the parents are carrying this themselves at a cost of roughly about $600 to $1,000 a year per child, and they're footing the bill themselves, not we, the taxpayers. In part two of today's show, we've got Cheryl Chumley, the online opinion editor of the Washington Times, author of host, I should say, of Bold and Blunt. It's a podcast discussing the obvious lack of leadership and vision of the Democratic Party. The recent display and lack of decorum at the joint session of Congress made it clear that they are not ready for prime time or to govern. Right now, let's bring on Sam Sorbo, the family first actress, writer, speaker, and homeschool mom advocate. Sam, welcome to the show. Good to have you with us.
Oh, I want to talk about the Democrats. That's much more fun than education.
Well, of course. Well, okay, we can chew on that for a little bit just to get warmed up. I mean, they've been gaslighting us to no end. And of course, we saw what happened during Trump's speech. I mean, they really embarrassed themselves, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, they really clearly have nothing to offer the American people. And I think that's the main takeaway, is those people don't represent any kind of humanity, frankly. They wouldn't stand up for a 12-year-old cancer survivor who, by the way, checks a DEI box. Like, come on. Yeah. They really embarrassed themselves. And the shaking of the cane, it was so, I mean, even Bill Maher had to make fun of that. That's grandpa shaking his cane at these these kids. If it weren't for these kids, meddling kids, whatever. I mean, It's so ridiculous. They are a parody of themselves, and there seems to be nothing that they can do about it. I'm very excited for the future of the nation.
Yeah. As long as they stay in the wilderness. I get nervous sometimes, Sam, to be honest with you. Because even Charlie Kirk was meeting with Gavin Newsom. I don't know if you saw that interview or not. And Charlie's given him some really awesome advice. And I'm thinking, you don't want to share that with them. Just leave them alone. Maybe because, I mean, Newsom's trying, I mean, he cracks me up. He does this little tight little thing, hug, swivel deal with himself. I don't know what he's telling me here. I'm sure the body language experts are, they could do a field day on that. But anyway, and maybe for Newsom, certainly a lot of the Democrats, it's the wrong gospel, wrong church. They don't want to hear this. And they're out in the wilderness because that's where they put themselves.
Yeah. I mean, remember his name begins with noose. And I think Charlie was just giving him extra rope. So I think it'll all work out. Okay. It's interesting because he did walk back his stance on trans, which of course is absurd. He was so laying into the whole trans stuff. And so they are shooting themselves in the foot because they really can't take a stand because it will contradict everything that came before. Exactly. And in fact, that's what they're doing now. I just saw a mashup of Adam Schiff once as a congressman and now as a senator, and it's two different people. It's somebody talking out of both sides of their mouth. And so I am optimistic. I'm cautiously optimistic. But let's talk about the Department of Education, because that really is my bailiwick.
Well, okay. So we've been saying this for a long time. The Department of Education needed to go. Jimmy Carter did us no favors. I think maybe it started out as a viable idea, but unfortunately, like everything that gets in the government gets politicized and it loses its sense of mission. And here we are for decades down the road, and look what it's producing, Sam.
Yeah, well, it is child abuse now. Schools are child abuse. And I'm sorry for the teachers that are stuck in this very perverted, distorted system that we call our school system. But honestly, I just saw a video today of a young woman, a young girl, who at the age of 12 was given a book by her librarian in school. It was a recommended book and it had pornography in it. And I'm not talking pictures, I'm talking words. And she was an avid reader, and it sucked her into the world of pornography. It changed her personality. It became an addiction for her. It changed her relationship with her parents, her relationship with her friends. She eventually got to the point where she realized she didn't need friends. She could just be with her books looking for that next sort of dopamine hit. Exactly. And she finally snapped herself out of it. I think somebody noticed it and started talking to her about it. And she's now realized that this is a very dangerous thing. And this is in our schools. So yes, exactly. I'm not sure how we will be able to eradicate them unless we take a fully like Amish approach, like no books that have been published after 1950 available in the schools, or something that's like so drastic. I doubt very much that we'll be able to put it, down anybody's throat, although that might be a possibility. But here's the real problem. And I heard Marissa Streit say this, so I'm paraphrasing what she believes because I've embraced it. You cannot teach academics devoid of character. You must teach character. And our schools have trained us to believe that you can school somebody without teaching them character. And we are seeing the results of that. You cannot do that. And now they are invested in teaching character, teaching these kids trans ideology, DEI, CR, critical race theory, all of these things that have nothing to do with academics, but very much to do with the development of a character, of a value system in the child, a worldview, let's say. Oh, maybe we could call that a religion, right? And so we're teaching that in the schools, but it's the wrong doctrine for our children to then value academics. And so the academics are failing. We are 40th in the world, which is like, there are only 40 on the list, so we're last. So they're pursuing an America Last policy straight down from the Department of Education. And American people are waking up, which is the exciting part. But unfortunately, they've damaged all of these children. And I want to talk to you briefly about the damage to children, because I'm working on an op-ed right now about the decimation of the family that has been wrought by our schools. And so what happened was we convinced families, hey, school is the best place for your child. And the school eventually replaced the parenting. Exactly. And so now we're a largely unparented society because they broke those bonds by sending the child away from the family for 7 or 8, now even more hours a day.
Mhm.
These children are not learning how to form reasonable bonds and relationships with their family, which is the seat of the relationship growth,
Exactly.
right? And
Right.
so now we have a whole generation plus of individuals who can't have a relationship, which leads to divorce. So
Mhm.
they're and you know, obviously divorce is off the charts, but marriage is dwindling. We've got all of these different factors that are feeding into the decimation of the family. Well, guess what? The family is the backbone of our society.
Exactly.
So we wave goodbye to the family at our own peril. And
Mhm.
that's my struggle is when we wave goodbye to the family, we are now generating even more children that can be abused by the system, that are victims and will be victimized because they don't have the family backbone. They don't have the relationships even to be able to withstand what's happening in our schools. So to parents
Mhm.
out there, take your kids out of school. Take them out today. Do not dally. Take them out. If you do nothing for them, they will be better off than if they went back to school tomorrow.
Well, like you, Sam, I want the best for our kids. And you touched on this. But it's really key. And this is something that we've been talking a lot about in our show, in our daily show. And that is that we have to return to first principles. Let's go back to, Trump says America first. I say 1776 America first. When you look like you're talking about,
Yeah.
the culture and the wisdom of that era, where did it come from? We're told that wisdom comes from God. We've turned our back on God and everything has imploded on us to the point to where we are right now. I mean, you talk about this young girl in pornography. I was just reading a George Barna report here the other day, and this is really shocking to me. Up until I guess maybe several years ago, people always thought about pornography and men like they went together, hand in glove. But they only recently they're looking at the impact that it's had on women. And it's actually been growing from 33%. The last reading, according to Barna, is over 40% of women are involved in pornography today. And over a third of the people that go to church on Sunday are involved in pornography. So we have corruption within the camp. And if we get back to first principles and go back to where we started, which was with, Judeo-Christian principles, then I can believe we can start to really make some, headway into this. Otherwise, if we just try and do it in and of ourselves, good luck. I don't think that it's sustainable. We need to get back and anchor ourselves in those things that are so basic to our humanity and our identity, which comes from God and not from some president or a political party.
Well, of course, if you're talking about the God's influence in this country,
Yes.
certainly God influenced the founding of this country. It was through God's providence that the country even survived the Revolutionary War. And if you read any original documents,
Mhm.
you will see that to a man, they credited God with every miracle that befell them in their favor.
Mhm.
But then we most recently had the miracle of Donald Trump surviving an assassin's bullet by turning his head just a micro,
Yeah.
a micro bit away from the bullet and it whizzing through his ear. This kind of thing is we shouldn't take it lightly. We should look
Right.
at it and really pursue it. And when you talk about getting back to first principles, in other words, getting back to 1776 and the principles upon which this nation was founded, I love that you bring that up because
Mhm.
who were we? We were a bunch of ragtag individuals who were self-educated. We were all self-taught. None of our founders went to school. They
Right.
might have attended college, okay? But college was from the age of 13. And so before that, they didn't have schools. We didn't have schools in the nation. And these men devised the floor plan for the greatest nation on earth, the schematics of a government that is of the people, by the people, for the people, that has never before been seen.
Mhm.
And at this point, I doubt will ever be seen again because we unfortunately are in decline right now. And the reason that we are in decline is because we have allowed the government to teach us we have trusted the government to teach its citizens that they maintain the power. And we don't know that anymore. And that's
Right.
why, for instance, school choice. This is this new sort of newfangled, this is what's going to solve all of our school problems. We're going to have the money follow the child. A lot of people like to say. So it's the government funds that go to the parents for the education of their children. Okay, two things. We already have school choice, and it's not that. So you have the ability, whoever you are, to choose the school that your child attends. It's on you. Okay.
Right.
So we have that already. But now they're calling this thing school choice. This is government funded schooling, which we have already, but it's directed by the parents and it's overseen by some new government agency. New for every state, let's say. Every state has their own. So some of the money gets siphoned off from the top because it goes through the federal government. Some of the money gets siphoned off by the states. And then the rest of the money goes to the parents. And I will tell you that I know parents who have used the money to buy flat screen TVs. And that's not the idea behind it. So if people actually understand what we're talking about with the money follows the child, then they would get their hackles up a little bit, because that's not what this is. Right now, we're going through a period where DOGE, the Department of Governmental Efficiency, is discovering all of this mishandling of funds. Why do you think that the government just distributing money to citizens is going to solve the academic crisis that we have for our students? It's absurd. But because we all went to school, we weren't taught discernment. We weren't taught to look behind peek behind the curtain and see the wizard behind the curtain pulling all the levers. It's absurd. It's like saying food stamps will make people healthier. Check again, right? This is food stamps for schooling, and it's not going to work. And unfortunately, what it will do is it will governmentalize every private school, and you will no longer have your private schools. So you private schools out there, I'm putting you on a warning, because you love this money. You want this money, but you better understand, you take it at your own peril, because they will put you out of business. They have no desire to see you succeed. Instead of a government run school, they will governmentalize your school and make it a government school.
Well, it's kind of like the success of Hillsdale College, right? Hillsdale College refused government money, and look at why.
And look at all the other colleges.
Exactly.
All the other colleges in this nation are an example of school choice.
Yes. Right. Well,
and parents are saying, I don't even know if my child should go to college because, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. What are they getting? And even, the thing is that here we are on this technological, bubble getting ready to explode. I mean, which is going to be great. AI and all the advancement that's going on, that's on the horizon, and our kids are ill prepared for it right now. But thank God for Donald Trump, who is at least focusing on it,
Right. No, it's true. The school, by the way, can we call them factory schools? I mean, seriously, they're so outdated at this point, and they're preparing children for jobs, so I have my own problem with that, because I think that it's child abuse to tell a child that his only value is how much money he can earn. But set that aside. That's what they're telling children. College prep, career readiness, that's all about the money. But what they're doing is they're preparing children for jobs that don't exist, that won't exist anymore. And so while they're putting a cap on the child's learning, because that's what schools do, they discourage learning. They discourage the love of learning. They turn out, and people who are listening know, when you left, basically most people when they left school hated the whole idea of learning and education, and leave me alone, I don't like it. And that's what they're doing to children today. But they're doing obviously much worse, because it's become so much more abusive with the pornography and the rest of the stuff that's happening in our schools. And so what are we really about now? We're trying to prepare children for jobs that won't exist. And we're not even doing a good job of that. We say that we're all about the academics. Clearly that's a lie, because we're not accomplishing academics. And so why are we still on this treadmill? And the reason is because, Bill, you and I went to school, and we were taught that school is good. That's what we were taught. In fact, by the way, if you want any information, it's all in my book. I just have to throw this up there.
Yes, please do that. Yes.
It's the Parent's Guide to Homeschool. And so I go through all of these sort of points about what's wrong with our schools as a way of empowering parents to understand, you parents, you're enough. You're teaching your child to be an adult is enough.
Yes.
Literally, it's enough. They need to know how to read, how to write, how to do some math, and then basically how to be a human being. And
Exactly.
you've got that in spades. You're a human being. Look at that.
Exactly. It's life experience. I mean, look what's happening. Like you say, the homeschooling parents today, they're not all PhDs. I mean, they run the spectrum, of people who are
absolutely
not college educated, some having graduated from high school. I mean, go on down the entire list, right?
Right.
But
and they're
out there, and you got
successful
homeschooling growing about 6 to 8% every year.
That's right. And you don't have to know. All you have to, here's the thing, and I try to simplify it for people because it's terribly daunting thinking that you're somehow going to replace that red brick institutional building, right? But the fact is this, if you can give your child a love of learning and show them how to learn,
exactly,
that's really what it's all about. And so if you don't know, you're actually in a better position because as long as you're willing to show them how to learn it, which you can do, then you will put them on the path to success, and then they will be empowered, your children, to learn anything that they need at any point. They can go after any job they want because they will know how to study up and learn it before they get to the job interview.
Well, their critical learning skills are so much more advanced, Sam. I mean, because you're in an environment that is about education, not indoctrination, like you said.
Yeah, well, it's just much less onerous, right? The school, and this is all in my book, the lies that the schools teach our children, that learning is hard, that teaching is hard, and that teacher has all of the information. Teachers have very limited information. They know classroom management. That's the one thing that they excel in. But basically the teacher, for the most part, unless they've been teaching for a very long time, has read the lesson plan the day before, and they come in and they impart the lesson plan, and then you learn it. And somehow you think that, oh, teacher knows everything and I can trust the teacher. Let's face it. We just went through a whole time period of trust the experts. And how did that work out for us? Not very well. No. But we did it because we were trained in school to trust the experts. And I'm telling you that is faulty training. They've been doing this for decades. This isn't new. This is just the latest iteration of a flawed paradigm. And so the more parents that I can empower to take your kids out of school, the better off you will be. And of course, the better I'll feel, because that's my whole paradigm. And I can't tell you the number of parents who have come up to me, having heard me speak 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever, and say, I heard you speak and we took our daughter out the very next day and it's just been the greatest blessing on our family. Or, you told my husband to take both our boys out. We were only going to take one out, but he decided to listen to you. He felt that it was right. And it's just been the greatest thing for our family and for the boys. They're just thriving and they're so smart. And so that's the nugget that people have a really hard time cracking, because they still believe in school. And the reason they believe in school is because they've been indoctrinated K through 12, 13 years of believe in school. We are the greatest. We're the best,
Yeah. But look at the numbers of homeschooling kids, how much better they perform than kids in public education, Sam.
25 to 45% better on the standardized tests.
Unbelievable.
And
it shouldn't be unbelievable, but for some people, again, caught up in the tradition of the white coats, and the professionals telling us what we're supposed to believe and what we're supposed to know. But the thing, sadly, too, with education has become more of a top-down situation. There are some great teachers, but unfortunately, they're hamstrung because the administration state of public education says you will teach this. And they don't have the flexibility to be able to say, hey, look, the class is moving in this direction. They really need to learn this particular element before something. No, you got to stay with the plan. If not, then you get marked down.
Well, not only that, you have to stay with the slowest student. So your exceptional learners, forget about it. They're disenfranchised right away. I was recently speaking to a group, and a woman came up to me afterwards, and she had tears in her eyes because she is a public school teacher. She's a Christian. She is ministering to the kids in her care. And she also recognizes that everything I say is true. And so she's very conflicted because she knows that she's doing a ministry for those kids, but she also understands how harmed they will be by this system at the end of it. It's a meat grinder. It's really terrible. And I don't wish it for anybody's children. I can't save all the kids, but if I can encourage parents to, or empower them at least to take their kids out of school and at least give it a try. I think that I know that what they will see on the flip side is the difference between black and white and Technicolor. Yeah. We think that we're setting ourselves up for some sort of terrible, tremendous lift, that it's very difficult, that homeschooling is the hardest thing ever. And I've actually long said, if homeschooling is hard, you're doing it wrong. Yeah. Parenting is hard. Parenting can be challenging.
No doubt.
But homeschooling? No. Then you're doing it wrong, because it should be pretty easy. Kids love to learn, and they only start to hate learning when they go to school.
As we wrap things up here, Department of Education, Trump said, let's dismantle it. What do you see, the next step? I know we've kind of, hit all this, but in terms of best case scenario, what could you hope for that would happen, that Linda McMahon and our government would do on behalf of the kids?
Well, I think she believes at least that she needs a majority, 2/3 in the Senate, which is 60 something, and 60 won't have it, right? No. And so, or I think she thinks that she needs 60, but I'm not sure. Like whatever that definition is, it's more than 59, and she doesn't have 59 if the Democrats all go one way. So for her to actually shut it down, there's a lot of water that has to pass under that bridge. It's not going to be a fast moving current. I think it's going to be a slow boat, which is unfortunate. But there are a lot of misconceptions out there. Like, what about student loans? Well, student loans go through a completely different department.
Exactly.
So don't worry about them.
$1.64 trillion of student loans. Exactly.
Yeah. But the Department of Education itself is it's over $1 trillion a year. And I just want to read you the mission statement, because I brought it up: to promote student achievement and preparation for global competitiveness by fostering educational excellence and ensuring equal access. So they get an A for alliteration, because there's a lot of E's that they used at the beginning of their words. But other than that, they're not hitting their mission target. So I don't know what they think they're doing. And I don't even know. I mean, I think that they would be hard put to define how they would achieve the student achievement and the preparation. And by the way, like, that's the problem with all of these sort of quick fixes, is somehow giving parents money will improve student outcomes. That's not how it works. And, as educators, they ought to know that.
Exactly.
So Linda's got Linda McMahon, who's been confirmed this past week, she has a lot of work on her plate. And she's got a lot of convincing to do and education of people if she wants to get the votes. And I'm pretty sure she believes that she needs the votes in order to actually shut it down. The things that she might be able to do are just sort of curtail some of the programs that go through the Department of Education. But my concern is that they're not actually going to save the money. They're actually going to disperse it to different avenues and sort of, it's the great shell game of the government funding. Right. So, and we have yet to see, DOGE has saved all of this money, but we have yet to see where those savings are going to be applied. I think they've said that they're going to apply them to the debt and pay off some of the debt, which would be a step in the right direction.
Exactly.
And then moving forward, of course, there would be savings year upon year of those things. So we'll see. We'll
and of course, they teased us a little bit with a dividend possibly as well, Sam. So,
yeah, which I think is let's cut taxes. Let's do that. So if that money is going to go pay off the debt, then how about cutting taxes also by that amount?
Exactly.
And moving forward so that they don't get their hands on that money. Wow. At least maybe anyway, I'm just saying, like, they've got a lot of work and it's a Gordian knot. And so I don't disparage her efforts. Certainly there haven't been very many yet. So I'm rooting for her.
Yes,
but she does have her work.
I'm with you on that. Sam, we got to leave it there. Thank you as always. Sam Sorbo, the Family First actress, writer, speaker, homeschool mom. And Sam, the website they can go to find out more about homeschooling and find out about you and that husband unit of yours known as
Yes,
Kevin
my
Sorbo.
husband unit. Go to sorbostudios.com, sorbostudios.com. Look up the book. It's right there. Also, we have some great events coming up. We're traveling to Greece with a very small group, and I think we still have 2 seats left. So feel free to reach out for that. Go to the events page and look at that stuff, and we'll see you. Thanks, Bill. Good to see you.
Sam, as always, appreciate it. Take care. All right.
Bye.
You got it. Sam Sorbo, our guest. With us coming up next from the Washington Times is the online opinion editor, Cheryl Chumley, joins us now. Cheryl, welcome to the show. Good to have you with us.
Hi, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
I'll always love having this time together. A lot going on. This is the time of year where March Madness takes place and basketball, raises some excitement, but there's lots of March Madness on college campuses like what we're seeing at Columbia, huh?
Yeah. And you know what? The difference now, though, is compared to last time when Joe Biden was in the administration, right? When he was president, is that we actually are seeing some action from this White House, from the Trump White House. People are being arrested and they're being unmasked. So we get to see the faces of those protesters who go to great lengths to conceal their identities. And, the latest is the Palestinian, pro-Palestinian, really pro-terror group leader on Columbia campus was just arrested, possibly going to lose his green card and so forth. And this is great. We're seeing some action here.
Yeah, the thing that's amazing, Cheryl, is like, the American people are going, why didn't we do this earlier? Why have we put up with this? Why have the presidents of these universities have tolerated this kind of outrage that is compromised? I mean, you got these kids and families paying a boatload of money for their education, and it's all being interfered with by these pro-terrorist groups.
Yeah, I think those in America of sane mind, right, who aren't the anti-Semites, knew that when these protests started first breaking out on college campus, that it would be very easy to clear them, right? All you had to do was imagine if these were protesters wearing MAGA hats, pro-Trump hats, and they were inciting riots and so forth. Watch how quickly the Joe Biden administration and the college administrators would have banded together to shut down those protests. But because the political will was missing, that's why those protests were allowed to go forth for so long. And now, the situation's changed. We have an administration in the White House that isn't going to shy from taking punitive measures against campuses that allow this blatant anti-Jew, pro-terror group demonstrations to go forth.
Well, it just seems a matter of common sense. And I'm encouraged because I see this common sense not only spreading at other campuses and universities, but around the world where, and this is what leadership does. Leadership can be contagious, can't it?
Yeah. And, it's a funny thing about leadership, right? You don't have to have everything figured out in order to enact great change, right? All you have to do is be firm and steadfast and determined in your messaging, and then watch all the nefarious forces fall, watch all the evil as they fly back into their dark corners. And so this administration has basically put out the message that they're not going to put up with anti-Semitic displays, and they've backed it with a little teeth. And so watch, this year is going to be very, very different on college campuses compared to last year. It's the same type of narrative that have really overnight shut down our borders. This administration has sent a strong message. Nothing's really changed. We don't have more money going into the border. We don't have more agents hired. It's just the narrative, and it's been a complete 180.
Well, and it's been amazing what this president has done in 51 days. It is just spectacular on behalf of the American people, shutting the border overnight. And then you look at those old tapes that Joe Biden says, it's broken. It's going to take a lot of money and all this other stuff. And it took how many executive orders? And look at the numbers. I mean, dramatic. I mean, night and day difference.
Yeah, it's not like all of a sudden we've hired, 500,000 more border agents, and that's made the difference. The big difference is the political will.
Exactly.
And, this White House, really, Donald Trump has surrounded himself with some really great people this time around, and they've all come equipped to hit the ground running, which we've seen. None of them are sitting in their offices, and we're sitting here as American citizens wondering what they're doing. They're all out and about, and we see the actions that each of the cabinet secretaries are taking, and it's having a tremendous difference on America.
Well, it's kind of hard to not keep up with your boss who lives on what, 3-4 hours of sleep a night. And, he's sending out a tweet at 3 o'clock in the morning. So whatever sleep you're able to get, you better check your X account or your Truth Social account to find out, okay, what are my orders for the day, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like, America, the sleeping giant has been awoken under this
Exactly.
president, right? We went from dead administration, dragging around Joe Biden, watching him fall, call out dead people, struggle to put his coat on, struggle to walk through the beach sands, to a president who is just kicking it. Like you said, in 51 days, he's probably done more than Joe Biden and Barack Obama did in their 12 years combined. So,
yeah, Joe Biden's still trying to figure out what 5 things he did yesterday or
Yeah,
this past week.
well, it's interesting, the headlines. You raise an interesting point because that's part humorous, but now we're seeing that his auto signature has been used.
Yes,
so many
exactly.
times. Yeah, so it's going to be very interesting as the days go by when we start to get revelations about what did Joe Biden actually sign on to and what was being done behind scenes.
Mhm. Well, the question remains, who was actually president of the United States? And it was shocking. I mean, you look at the auto pen signature that was there, and the only real signature that they could discern was the one that made the announcement that he was not going to run,
That's
which was he signed in Delaware, right? So I guess the auto pen wasn't available there.
Yeah, it's humorous, right? But we really have to look past the humor and see the deeper message there, that for 4 years, it's as we suspected, that the White House under Joe Biden was basically, he was a puppet president, and there was a shadow government that was actively pushing agendas that were contrary to American citizens' interests.
And look what it cost. I mean, it's not only Joe Biden, it's the Democratic Party. This is why they're in the wilderness, and they should be. And somebody at some point, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, the Justice Department needs to come after, because of the damage that they have done to this country. I mean, part of the challenge that Donald Trump has is coming in. He doesn't come in with this nice peaceful transition, from one administration to the next. I mean, he's got a mess of messes to clean up. And then on top of that, we find out that Joe Biden on his way out was disseminating almost $1 trillion of assets to his cronies.
Yeah, Donald Trump does have a mess to clean up, and he's doing a tremendous job, though, addressing much of that. The
Yeah.
big sticking point for this administration, I think, is the court system, right?
Yes,
You've seen
without
that.
a doubt.
Yeah, so there needs to be some address, maybe a couple judges impeached or something along those lines that make clear to the judicial system that, it's time to stop overreaching and basically exerting will over an entire country. But as far as fighting back and pushing back on all the other agendas, the Doge project alone is just really revealing to American citizens so much of the waste that we knew had been going forth, but we just didn't know to what extent and in all the different areas. And so that alone will do a lot to cleaning up some of the corruption.
Well, what happens when the truth comes out, everybody's indictable. It's not just government, because what you've got, like they revealed in the Social Security checks, we got a person 360 years old getting a check, supposedly. Come on, and how many people over 100? Millions of people over 100. I mean, we're setting a record, like Donald Trump kind of kid, RFK Jr., during the joint speeches says, man, we've already done a great job. We got healthier people than we realize here in America, living so long, right?
And I want to go back to what you said a minute ago about Democrats being in the wilderness, because it ties into what you were just saying. That it seems to me that this would be an easy opportunity for Democrats to sort of unify over a core principle that tax dollars should not be going toward, corruption and
Exactly.
toward wasteful things, both domestically and in foreign nations. But Democrats, they are so far gone. They are so anti-Trump that they can't even get behind policies that really just root out waste of tax dollars and rein those in. And it's a little bit astonishing to see to what extent the Democrats will go to resist this administration.
Well, you have these 80-20 propositions that are out there that they're on the losing side time and again, whether it's, men and women's sports, how they demonstrated themselves during the joint session. They couldn't even stand up for a young boy that had brain surgery, a girl who got hit in the head by a trans athlete that will suffer for the rest of her life, TBI. The Nungary family and Lincoln Riley family, they couldn't even acknowledge the pain and suffering that these families have endured because of their policies and the open borders that Joe Biden swung open, that we have millions of illegal immigrants in this country that are perpetrating crimes. And regardless of these sanctuary cities that want to, say something different and gaslight us on it, the people who live there know better.
Yeah, and it's to the Democrat Party's detriment, right? Though, I'm kind of split on that, because the lower the Democrats go, the deeper in the mud they wallow, the better it is for Republicans and conservatives, right? The better it is for us politically that, independents and more moderate Democrats will vote for our candidates over the radicalized Democrats. But look, there are a few Democrats who are awakening to the radicalization of their party, Gavin Newsom being the most notable and most recent. And when he came out and he said in his state, men cannot play in women's sports, boys cannot play in girls' sports, that was a massive announcement, not just to the Democrat Party that he was splitting from on that particular platform, but also it serves as sort of a heads up that this is the guy that is going to run for president for the Democrat Party in the next election.
Yeah, he's reading the polls.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why he had Charlie Kirk in his office and they did the podcast, and Charlie is telling him things. And I'm almost thinking, Charlie, don't tell him. Maybe in some respects, it might be, the wrong gospel, wrong church, that maybe he just hears it, but it really doesn't take root, because what Charlie was sharing with him was very pragmatic. But the Democrats, like you said, ideologically, they're so fixed and lost that this is self-imposed. And to be honest with you, Cheryl, I had predicted this to happen back in 2020. I thought that they were going to lose so miserably in 2020 that it was going to cause them to do some soul searching. Well, I was off by 4 years. And, here it is, because they have really imploded on themselves. And like I said, everything, the policies of Joe Biden as the faux president of the United States, the damage that we've had to endure, you've got to put it at their feet. But what concerns me, Cheryl, and I was talking with another guest here earlier this week about this, is that, the spirit of greed has come upon the political class. And we got to understand, it doesn't stay there. It spreads into the electorate to where people think, well, look at, Nancy Pelosi's making all this money. What does it matter if I take extra money? I don't pay my taxes, or I have a check here that came in that I shouldn't cash, but I'm going to cash it anyway. And these people that have been cashing checks for years on Social Security for a loved one that's been dead for God only knows how long. I mean, this greed runs rampant, and that's what we need to be careful. And I say be careful. We need to be honest about it, to where if we're going to get this country back on track, we've got to embrace the truth like we've never embraced it before. And I think that would make a huge difference and solve a lot of problems. But it's going to take some courage. It's going to take a lot of courage for the Democrats to come from where they are and for citizens of the United States to, what echoes to me and what brought this out was I was watching JFK's inauguration. I do that every once in a while, and cycled in, and his statement about ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for the country. And what's happened is too many Americans are living off the dole and the largesse of the hardworking taxpayer. And it's just not fair. And this is what Doge is bringing out. And now, how are we going to reconcile all this? Because this is going to cause some psychological damage, I believe.
So it's an interesting question on many fronts because, the way you talk about the entitlements, the entitlement mindset that's taken root and spread in America. And that's only gotten worse the more we open our borders, right? Because what we do is we let in these people from countries where they are used to their governments providing from cradle to grave. And they come here with the same sort of mindset, not respecting or aware of what American exceptionalism is. Mm-hmm. And so they vote for those politicians that promise cradle to grave entitlements as well. And then pretty soon, everybody, as you just pointed out, greed is a factor. Greed, everybody wants their own. If my neighbor gets that, I should get that too. It's only fair. And so it sort of feeds on it, right? And the Democrat Party has become the party of promising these big entitlement programs, these big entitlement giveaways, because they don't have the principles to get votes, to earn votes. So they have to resort to gimmicks and giveaways as a way of securing their power, as securing their next elections.
And the thing that disgusts me most about this, Cheryl, is they use our money to do that.
Of course. It's very easy to give away other people's money.
Of course. But here it is. And it's no wonder that 40% of the electorate will vote for them automatically because they're at the trough.
Yeah. And so when you look, I like how you brought up greed, because that's touching on the political system is based on the culture, right? You and I know this, your viewers know this. It's all about the Bible, biblical truths playing out. And if you don't have a citizenry that's morally compassed from a higher power, then you're going to get a corrupted political system, which is why we're at where we're at in America right now. And so in addition to greed, I think there's a great deal of arrogance that goes along and pride in our political class to sort of look down on citizens as if we cannot no longer do for ourselves, that we need government, that government is the only solution for all that ails. And that's another way that our government grows beyond limits, beyond proper limits.
Well, thank God our citizens exercised their own critical thinking during COVID, or we all would have been dead. I mean, it's pretty scary. I mean, like you say, but this is this is the point we've come to. But thank God for Donald Trump. Thank God for Elon Musk and Doge and what's being revealed to the American people. And okay, so now all this is coming out. So what are you going to do with the truth now?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because a lot of us have been fighting from the trenches for years and waiting for the day when the politics would actually follow, the limits of the government that are rightly set out in the Constitution. And so we have that in place right now. But look, we can't just sit back and say, well, Donald Trump's our savior, right? He's going to correct everything. All we can do is look at Donald Trump and this administration as sort of a 4-year reprieve, right? We've got a little breathing room, and now we can make the real fight that needs to be made in America, the one for God-given rights and liberties, right? It doesn't matter who's in politics. We as individuals should be taking our rights and freedoms from God. And in order to do that, we have to read the Bible, we have to teach our kids the Bible, and we have to insist on Judeo-Christian principles being upheld in our political class, which starts with moral governance and then also includes things like humble service to the people.
Exactly. Well, it's a time to re-embrace, yes, the Bible, the Word of God, the basis. That's the first principle of everything. And then go ahead and just read the Declaration of Independence. I mean, that in itself is liberating, isn't it?
Yeah. You read, we hold these truths to be self-evident, right? That we are endowed with certain unalienable rights from the Creator. That's it right there. That's the marching orders for our government.
It's about freedom. That is the thing, freedom. And that's where it all emanates from. It comes from God Almighty, not from Donald Trump, as you said. And so we are a very unique, exceptional country because of this. Cheryl Chumley, as always, I'm so grateful for you and thankful that you've given us the time to come on the show. Cheryl Chumley is a online opinion editor for the Washington Times. She's the author and host of Bold and Blunt podcast, and she's just such a great job at the Washington Times. Cheryl, how can people be in touch with you?
You can find me on X at CK Chumley or on Substack at my name. Thanks for that, Bill.
Well, Cheryl, thank you. Appreciate it. Take care. Be blessed.
All right, you too.
Thanks again for coming on the show, Cheryl Chumley. And our thanks also to Sam Sorbo, who was here earlier talking about homeschooling and the status of public education. And, will America have what it takes in order to, do something and maybe reorganize, maybe not reorganize the public education, but dismantle it to where we would have something more worthy of our country and our future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us and sharing a part of your day with us. Again, may God bless you, and may God's face shine upon you. May his grace and peace be upon you. Thank you for being with us. God bless.